I'm going to do an insight video today, and I feel like there's been a bit of a shift in me over the last few days. Just looking at things and this sense of spiritual journey and the spiritual sort of like awareness and shifting. Um, Word like paradigm comes into sort of like into mind, where it's like this shifting of like a shifting in the way that you think, in the way that you're approaching, and allowing sort of like letting go of stuff and allowing something new to come in. Um, and very much this is how it feels at the moment as we start to shift into this new sort of vibrations and these new frequencies that start to really sort of manifest on the planet, but manifest with ourselves. I've been listening to a lady called Leanne Rose over the last. I've sort of like come across her like probably like 3 or 4 months ago. She talks about this like six-dimensional manifestation and shifting and frequency, and how this sort of like shifts, and it sort of like aligns with some of the stuff that I've already been talking about, where she talks about sort of like source energy, and like it's sort of like shifting from like the reality of like being in creation to sort of like shifting to like be a creator, where you create and manifest. This isn't like a new concept, but it's a shift in frequency and it's a shift in energy. And I've sort of like I was sort of like very much sort of walking back from my walk this morning, and I was getting into the light and the energy. My spiritual journey has always been quite it's been quite serious, quite focused. And this lady that when she does channeling and she does energy, it's a very different kind of energy. She's very sort of like quite joyful, quite playful, quite fun. Lots of sort of fun around it, and that's never really been my experience. But there's been like that's part of my sort of like human side and my ego. I think the fact that I get very sort of like caught up in trying to sort of like shift things and move them, and sometimes it's about control. And one of the insights that that have appeared like from this shifting is sort of like letting go, and then letting go of stuff. Even the sense of like this 3D reality that we're in, which is very physical, but it's also very sort of like heavy. It's very much around sort of like money, bills, jobs, stuff like that. And one of the sort of like the shifts in it is like that you've got to let go of all of that. You've got to let go of all of that kind of um, frequency to allow that new frequency to come in. When they start talking about like fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional reality, where you start to manifest, it's very much a shifting. Very much talks about sort of letting go and not being attached to that stuff, because once you're attached or connected to that stuff, that's your reality, and that's the shift. It's like you have to let that go. You have to open up. So as I was coming back and I was sort of like walking back from my walk, I tend to take my wife up there, and we have like a few sort of like conversations, and then as I sort of walk back on my own, I start to get into that deeper sort of like vibrational frequency of my own sort of like essence, my own source energy. And then what happens is it activates these light energies, these light frequencies within me. And as I was coming back, I was sort of like concentrating, and I was looking at sort of like Mother Earth, and I was looking at dimensions, and I was looking at sort of like the fact that we talk about like the fifth, the sixth, and we talk about the fourth dimension, and we talk about 3D reality. But there's like, obviously there's lots of discussion around sort of like the planet being a living, breathing, like Maya being this living, breathing sort of energy, and this being, I've read things, and I've come across things where they talk about like the Mother Earth is like this nine-dimensional being, like incarnated, and it sort of looks over the planet, and they very much talk about sort of like in on this reality within this plane and this planet of existence. There's nine dimensions, and obviously Mother Earth is connected to that. So Mother Earth being this nine-dimensional being and energy and frequency, is connected to source and a nine-dimensional reality. So in that sense, we're talking about like four, five, fifth, sixth D reality, and in that sort of like way of reality, it starts talking about that there's more dimensional shifts coming, and there's higher sort of like frequencies, not even higher, but there's more expressions of source. I don't like getting caught up in higher, lower, better or worse, or anything like that, because really it's about source. and each and every vibrational frequency of everything we go through is just a expression of reality, and that's an expression of the source creation. So in that sense, 3D is source, is creation, as is 6, 7, 8, and 9D. They're all sort of like different creations, um, and aspects of source. So in that sense, each of us are source energy. So each of us has access to those dimensions, and that expression of source energy. But the real thing that sort of like hit home to me today was, sort of like very much about letting go of 3D. I've talked about this before, but there's a shifting and an integration that comes with that. So you start getting into a state of being where you actually start to let that go, and by letting that go, that then allows to express, and to open, um, your infinite being, or your multi-dimensional being, or whatever you want to call it, because it's all the same thing. It's your source aspect of being, where you start to really sort of open up to that creation aspect of self. And when you start to do that, then you can start to really start to flow, and letting go of that 3D reality, and letting go of money and all those things that we attach to. We start to allow that flow of new energies and new vibrations and frequencies to come in, and that's the only way, that we can really start to really let go of it. Obviously, we're still human, we're still having an experience, but, it's this sense of knowing that we're beyond that. We're beyond just this this I self, which is this singular self, and we're actually an expansive self with, many aspects and many sort of like levels to that aspect of self. And self is really just source expressing itself, creation in all aspects of its of the energy, the frequency. As I was connecting into it, I was very much, walking back, and again they talk about the things like light language, light frequencies, and I've had experiences many times before where I feel like I am a light. I'm this energy, I'm this light, and I walk and I vibrate as it. And what it does is it dissolves everything. It dissolves all barriers, all sort of like boundaries and challenges. And when I'm in that, that's source to me. But I didn't really understand light language, or light activation in that sense. Um, I understand that the intellectual sort of understanding of it, but it's a felt sense kind of experience again, and this is where you start to go into source, when because it's source is energy, and the light frequencies are energy, and what they do is then they shift your vibration and your frequency to allow you to then start to, express and create on a different level, and this is what I feel is like connected to these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, 9 dimensions, because I say like 9 dimensions related to the planet. Obviously, there's many aspects of source that is infinite, and it's infinite realities, infinite expressions, and infinite, aspects of that source energy. So in that sense, it's like today it's very much around that. It's very much around letting go. I very much I feel like through my own spiritual journey, I've been very much sort of like, limited through trying to control things, and trying to push things. And actually, what I've tried to do is I've tried to create by pushing something rather than letting go. And letting go is the key, because when you're not attached to something, that allows you to express your light and your source energy in a different way. And then what that allows is something else to come online. And it's only through when you start to do that do you really start to express it. But it's also awakening to that energy, that creator source, or creative source within each and every one of us, that essence. And when we start to do that, then we can start to really open, and then we start to vibrate on a frequency where we start to vibrate with purpose, vibrate with, using energy in a way of creating, because the source energy is the blueprint, it's the code, that allows us to create. And it's only when we start to connect to that we start to see that aspect of ourselves, that creator aspect, can we really start to let go, and then start to really express light and energy in a way that we start to draw and attract. Excuse me. Excuse me. draw and attract that kind of energy that's it, it needs to come into our frequency to shift. And that's how we start to let go of the 3D blueprint, and we start to move into these higher dimensions. There was something else that really sort of like this Leanne Rose said the other day when I was watching like a free masterclass, and if you sign up to the email, she gives you this free app masterclass, and it talks about 16 manifestation. I'm not going to go into obviously what that entails, because that's her. She's creating that sort of that vibration, that frequency, and it's if you want to check that out, go out and check it out. But the interesting thing is she was talking about this notion of 5D and spirit and guides, and 6D was very much different to that, where you start to then connect into your source energy, and you move past wanting to connect to a guide or these guides, because actually at the end of the day you know that your light, your energy, your source, you're this spirit. So it's not about connecting to guides anymore, because you're already that. You're part of the same. You're part of the same whole. And again, this is like the universal source and the universal law of oneness in that sense. And I've believed that for a long time, and I've had many sort of experiences, spiritual experiences throughout my life, where I had experiences like there was like communication, that I am my guides and my guides are me, like things like that, years and years and years ago, when I was doing a lot of healing. I was working with a lot of energy work, and I never really sort of understood the separation, and I never really understood sort of like guides, and I've worked with like masters and other energies for a long time, but they would always turn up as light and energy. I would see them as color, light and energy, and I wouldn't necessarily. I get a frequency that tells me where the energy's coming from. So like if you look at sort of like Saint Germain or the ascended masters, they talk about like transmutation or transformation, and then if you're talking about creation or communication stuff, you can look at like Almora and things like that, and then you can look at Serapis Bey to do with like raising frequencies and energy and stuff like that. So they all connect in, but they're all part of the same whole energy. But for a long time I used to just see colour. I used to just see like a golden light when I used to heal. So, and for a long time, you used to go to these spiritual circles, or you go to spiritual churches, and the first thing they want to know is who's your guide, who's your ascended master, or who's your angel. And for a long time I always had the impression with the energies that I work with, they were source energy, and you were working with that source energy, and that's what it was about. It wasn't about who, where it come from. It was from source, and it wasn't about the guide that was working with you. And still to this day, I have that experience. Like my mum's like a medium, and like I sort of awakened at 18, and I'm like 47 now. I worked as a spiritual healer for a while, and like I would work with my mum, and we would connect in, and what she would do is I would express a feeling or a colour or something, and then she would be able to sort of visualise the being that was working with that, and that's worked with me. And still to this day I still get sort of I still get my sort of impressions in that way. But this is what resonated and hit home with me, what this Leanne Rose said, because for a long time I believed that it's not really necessarily about knowing those guides and that or who's helping you. In that sense, it's about activating and awakening to that you are that source energy, and you are the same. And that's the greatest sort of like that empowers you, because then your spirit, like all beings, that you're not separate. And the separation is the biggest illusion of what we sort of incarnate into, and it takes lifetimes sometimes to come out of that separation. I've seen. I look at people and I see energy around them. I've seen people disappear and turn into lights, and you can see straight through them. They become sort of translucent, or like you can look straight through them. And in that sense, it's like it's beautiful. And it's also then it's sort of like, again, it's a direct sort of evidence of everything is energy, everything is light, and that's the main sort of thing. So source energy is this creative light and energy that we all embody, and it's about integrating it and using it. But it's also again about this sense of trying to get somewhere. And another thing that this Leanne Rose said, that really sort of like resonated with me a couple of days ago, and this sort of like, I'm just doing like an insight video about it because I'm sharing some of the insights and some of the development and shifting that I go through. I feel very peaceful at the moment. Doing this reading, I feel very peaceful. I feel very connected. And I don't feel that when I'm in 3D. When I'm in 3D, I'm worrying about money, cars, stuff like that, all these kind of things. And that's why I know deep down within my energy, in my frequency, that this is not the way. This is not the way through stress, anxiety, doubt, fear, all these kind of things that we go through. And the 3D reality is, 3D blueprint is that. It's very much connected to that, and that's not who we are. That's not the expression of what we are. That's not our purpose. So, yeah, what she was talking about was very much connecting to this kind of sense of, we all use language, and we all use language in a different way, and that's what makes this planet such a beautiful place and a beautiful sort of like playground in that way, is that we're all infinite spirits with our own frequency and vibration and individuality, and we all bring that creative spark, that essence, and this is what this is how we do it. This is how we express ourselves, is through our own wisdom and our own energy. So she was talking about internal frequencies create the external reality, and this is something that I've talked about and resonates, and I've talked about this probably for months and months and months and months and months. So again, this again resonates with me, and but again, it's about seeing links, and I think spiritual journeys are about that. So for me, it's very much around sort of all the work that I've been doing. It's been shifting me and my expression and my reality and my frequency towards that 6D reality that this Leanne Rose is talking about, and manifestation and creation. So in that sense, a lot of the work then aligns and harmonizes, but then gives me insight and awareness that this is what's been happening. This is what's been happening with my energy, my energy, my frequency. And only sometimes by reflecting on the things do you start to see it. So the fact she's talking about this internal frequency, it creates your external reality, and all creation starts from that internal frequency, which is again this universal law of correspondence. That the source energy is within each and every one, and the source code is within each and every one of us. And this source creation and this source energy is what creates the reality. So whatever frequency that you're holding in your source energy is your outer reality, which is what the reality you're experiencing. And if you hold to a 3D reality, that is your reality, and nothing will ever shift, because that cycle will remain the same as long as you remain attached to those things. But then you're only expressing your source energy at that source level, and the levels can go in, they can infinitely expand to an infinite, an ultimate sort of expression of reality, depending on what aspect of source you're again expressing. Remember, we're in a physical body here. If we were in light bodies, the energy and the reality would seem very different, and our perspective of that, our consciousness of that would be very, very different. We're only talking like in, the 9D reality, which is obviously I was talking about, Mother Earth is. So that tells me, and in my sort of expression and in my understanding, my wisdom and my insight, if Mother Earth is a 9D reality being, then this planet has the potential to be a 9D reality. So, and then when it does that, it will then again shift and align to where we were before. And when we talk about again this like Atlantis and Lemuria, they were at different realities and different shifts and dimensional shifts. Well, we're shifting again to a very much a massive like spiritual shift in reality, and how we express ourselves as spiritual beings. And a being is a spiritual being is a being, being is this sense of being part of a whole. You vibrate, and you express your light, your energy as part of a whole, of a collective consciousness, not of a singular consciousness. and this is what this time is about. And I mean, again, if you listen to Leanne Rose, she connects to a collective, is what she calls it, the Galia Collective, which are a collective of beings, and that's how I see spiritual reality and spiritual life. There's no separation. We're all one source, and in that sense, we all when you're in that source energy and you're connected in that way, you have access to all information, all insight, all energy, all vibrations, or you can activate. And even if you're not creating on a reality in this moment, in this time, when you're in that source energy and you're in that collective and you're in those different dimensional realities of higher, not higher vibration, of more expansive vibration, because they're all part of the same whole and they're all connected to the source. Even if you were in a collective of a certain reality or expression, if you can't gain the insight, the understanding, or the information in your reality at that time, if you're truly open to the expansive energy of source, then you can communicate and link in with beings that are in a different reality of higher source, of higher understanding, of higher information, that can access higher dimensional reality, and they can then connect with you as you are part of source and give you that information. And this is what happens with channeling. This is what happens with source energy channeling, and light energy and light language, and all of it is around that. And this is again the shift. You see, just by talking about this, my reality is shifted again in one sense, in one moment. It's shifted to a different awareness just by talking about this, and it's opened up my energy, my insight. Well, that's the video for today. Please comment, subscribe, take time to check out my Facebook channel, Spiritual Insight and Awareness, as well. I'll put a link down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'd love some comments on some of the sort of the information, and please just sort of have a great day.